Hello, hello, hello! Angelo des. Today, first live stream. Gonna test some things out. I've said OBS, I've said some bit of YouTube, uh, and I'm gonna look at some images. I've said like a nice forest background, a real quickie, a thumbnail for the video, which eventually will make me a new face. Ooh, that was a spooky one. What about this one? Hehe, it doesn't move though. Anyways, I want to see some weird images. Not the weirdest we can get because it won't just show up that easily. When I was looking for like a decade now at weird, unique images, it left me wanting more, right? It doesn't always show you the one you want. And that's when you realize if there is anything catchy, anything that looks you want to keep looking at, that's a direction for you. That's how you know that you have interests slightly different from others, and that develops. You found channels, you found websites, you found people and posts, Reddit posts, forum posts, vlog posts that talk about that, and you read whatever library like Wikipedia or old blogs or books, coffee table books, big, huge, multi-hundred pages books. You look at movies and you think to yourself, wow, I really like this direction, right? Maybe it's like the development of like assault rifles or muskets, very specific type of muskets, maybe flintlock or wheel lock pistols, very specific settings, and you're like, wow, okay, well, how about this and that? And so this most of the time mixes with games, shows, and replicas, LARPing, and maybe historical art findings in museums. So all of these combine to give you an interest, this flavor of discovery, this preference you're gonna have. And you do this initially, occasionally, you type something in Google, in like whatever search engine you have. Now we have phones, so it's easier. And then you move to something more multimedia, like YouTube, and you get whatever posts there exists with short funny videos. And then you find 4chan, B-boards, and like whatever, slash K, and then you get real deep shit. And that's fine. You find yourself an interest. However, we're gonna, just for all time's sakes, open some images to look around the variation of what we used to get. Now, most of these images that you're gonna be able to find are indeed old. That's fine. That's fine. It's a reminder. You still have access to them to this day. You don't have to watch a low quality compilation, or to these days somehow even weirder, high quality AI made images, or should I say AI account run by humans with actual images. I don't know, it just rubs me weird that there is so much going to be made with programs that not necessarily have to do with the hobby itself. But anyhow, let's go back to the roots of how actually people find this. Because, yeah, you got like the sixth, seventh element, the movie, and you found the egg weapon that transforms. Like, wow, that's cool, whatever. I remember that. I remember that. And I was like, wow, okay. And then you saw Rambo, and then you found some, I don't know, like other futuristic weapons, or you saw old-time weapons. Maybe you watched some Victorian era steampunk anime, cartoon, whatever, and you thought, wow, that's also cool. It looks like feasible. And then you start watching videos on YouTube. Now, nowadays, safe skis. You can watch like an hour-long video, set your sleeper timer in it, go back at it, watch people make projects, and it's looking great actually. They will make props, will take some actual metallurgy, because you don't actually have to make a fictional weapon. That's too much of a work actually. Pressures mostly in the CNC to match the, and then of course having to use something as propellant. Yeah, it's not going to work for most people. They don't have the access to that, and even if they did, it would be dangerous. Kapow! It would go like this, for the most part. So, like we used to, most of us, we opened it up like, wow, look at all those images. There's variation too, right? As you can see, there are old pieces, and the unique factors are, well, you're used to seeing one barrel. If it's a revolver, it has a handle, a cylinder, a frame, and you shoot, you shoot, you shoot. Okay, especially in a movie, you don't actually keep track of the rounds, and then like, oh, by the time it's gone, the fight is over. Oh no, he has to reload. Oh, that either takes forever. He can like put a round in bullets, or it's like whap instantly, ka-chunk. Might as well have a pump action in front of it. Like, yeah, if he's that dexterous, action hero or villain, yeah, might as well just make him to pump action. He is the pump with his arm and fingers. Might as well, that reminds me of that scene from an anime where the female protagonist had the bullets, the cartridges in her boobas, and she had a revolver, and the cowgirl suit. Anyhow, and when she went to reload, did she only had loose ammo or moon clips? I think she had moon clip. No, loose ammo. I think it was loose ammo. Like, now how did that? Anyhow, it's anime logic. So whenever she wanted to reload, she would jiggle her broom. And ammo would fly. And then she would like flop, 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 fit it exactly into the chambers. I'm like, okay, that's anime logic right there. Nothing bizarre. But hey, nowadays, with all the tools we have, and yes, I'm talking about you, Bethesda, now we just broke all barriers. Why try to make something look realistic when you can just bypass it? Yeah, load directly from the receiver. Yeah, there's a metal surface. It's future. You just load it straight through. There's no need to make any sense of it. What's the point of using an AI if it's going to be so wrong? It's not even a parody. It just... Now you might be saying, oh, what are you talking about? Like, I saw the trailers, the comparison of the guns. Yeah, Yeah, it still has. I'm talking about the clipping issues, a bit exaggerated. Yeah, uh, there used to be this very obvious clipping issue with the Call of Duty trailer. Yeah, with the stand gun. The Call of Duty trailer, World War II, I believe, where the bolt of the stand gun was 180 degrees on the wrong side, and it was just going back and forth through the back of the like a metal tube with a cap on, and it was just rocking it. I mean, okay, it's 30 graphics, so it can do that, but I don't know. Like, you see unique, weird, and you still have a connection to reality, right? You always are shown something more, or sometimes less, which is also interesting how it works to attract people. Because if you see, let's say, a cartoonish version of a gun, because someone took a prop, someone took, I shouldn't say prop, I should say a fake gun, right? Something that looks like a gun. Maybe it's plastic, and it painted the barrel to make a nut. You're like, oh, haha. Okay, not exactly looking like it's gonna do more damage. It will probably look like it's gonna be hurtful to the user, those around him, but it's a plastic toy. Like, oh, ha, ha, ha. You know, I've seen Batman, the cartoon, Joker has a very long barrel, you know, like whatever. I've seen Looney Tunes. I know what happens when the main character pops the barrel of whatever character is interacting with him. Haha, funny. Uh, mm, yes. And many people think like they see something similar with a bended barrel, like the Kromlauf, the Sturmgewehr with the bended barrel, Second World War II assault rifle. And they're like, oh, this, I know this, it has to be the cartoon physics I was watching those years ago. Uh, and then you have, you know, take a look, more examples. And this is usually where it takes us to a search engine or a multimedia platform, to looking through the images that we're searching and the videos, if it's the multimedia. So if I were to do pretty much anything in a search engine, yeah, it's gonna pop up images from the websites, but that's not really what you, that's like an overlay, and that's where it starts, and it's fine for the most part, right? You can still kind of look around, get like an idea what could be the different, because you know the good idea for every comes, or when you play around with your friends, you're like, oh great, what about having more firepower? I'm going to win this fight, this imaginary fight with my friends. Or how would it look like if it, you know, anything, a knife, a spoon, a rock, every time you threw it, it would just go, huge tornadoes come out of it. Uh, then you watch some movies, and you start fantasizing about it. Then you play video game, might play with your toys, and then you grow. It's not a bad thing to have questions. Uh, it's bad though when you take it for granted that, hey, I can just put my hands on anything, put anything on my hands, and just use it as it is, because accidents will happen. Many accidents. So if I were to press pretty much anything, it would look like this, right? Now you might be saying, oh, well, how do you understand what you're seeing? As you can tell, just by typing it, there is some bland colors, some like blackish, some grayish, whitish, bluish, and of course brownish, reddish. You can tell, okay, there's a bit of a brush here. You can tell you're looking at guns or firearms mostly because of the length, something blocky with a grip and a stack. So it's very, I mean, you know, like whatever that is. It reminds you of the sticks you used to play with, right? You found a good stick, it's fine, it's good. But then you realize that I want something very specific to look for when looking into guns, firearms. Either it's a video game, it's a movie, it has to look like a gun. So, does this look like a gun? Well, it's a powerful weapon, so it is a gun? Okay, what if it was like an orb that were floating? That's a good question. You can use it. Is how the conversation with your friend would go, but can you grab it and start punching something with it? Because it's an orb, it doesn't have a grip, right? A trigger, something you understand, or turn compact, or use it as a club. If it's going to be futuristic or spiritually or fantasy orb that does whatever in the game or in the show that you're viewing, it could be a light novel, a visual novel with images, okay? And you're like, okay, you have options. Do you want a gun, or do you want like a PewPew that obliterates everything, but it's most likely ethereal, doesn't exist? It's like, oh, press these buttons and just nuke the whole map. Fun, but as long as your computer can handle it, or mobile, your phone these days, or handheld device. But there's like a very distinct choice. People want to be able to show they have something. Because, yeah, sure, like you can have shown somebody else if there is custom class creation, character creation, you probably put something, some difference in there. So you want your character to have it. If some other character were to come in and show you that, hey, look, I have this thing, and this thing is like, how do I open this? It's like, oh, it's a Celtic. Yes, I am. It's like, wow, look at this, right? It opens, it moves, it might have like some animated images, like in Fallout, where it's kind of zooms in, where you do like a critical damage, or you decide to play. But like, people want to be able to immerse themselves at handling something. Okay, what about if this very seemingly actual firearm with grip, trigger guard, trigger, seemingly like a upper, lower, buttstock, what is a barrel, a scope, where to float, but not in the character's hands, either in 3D or 2D, right? This could be like a show, this could be like a visual novel with images, slightly moving here and there, mostly dialogue. This could be a fully 3D game, first person, third person, switching in betweens, very far away, like real-time strategy, where you could scroll down and zoom in. If you see them like floating around and firing to the point you can see the triggers like getting triggered, pushed wirelessly, just existing, and you can like pointing, haha, it just goes out like Madoka Magica style. Do the players feel they have this gun? I would argue yes, because it's around your character. That's kind of the thing with artillery strikes. Like, you don't mostly see the artillery strikes, like in Battlefield 2. You play Battlefield 2, you play an artillery strike. Now, if you are watching the artilleries, you can actually see them raising up. But why are you doing this? If you're calling artillery strike, you're probably not looking at your own artillery, at your base. You could, if there's like your opponents there, if you're like securing the area, if you're just forced to go back, but that's kind of the point. Like in a first-person shooter, you don't get to see your character in full. You don't see the back of your character necessarily. It's a first person. You see in front of you. That's kind of the point. So having all these items that you're interested in various settings, fantasy, steampunk, futuristic, like modern, slice of life, whatever, does create the illusion, the immersion that you kind of are handling them, even though you're touching them, because it's fantasy, it's like whatever, it's art, it's a game. But you do understand the shape. So how off from this formula of a handle, a trigger, a lower, a bolt carrier, whatever, barrel shroud, the barrel, scope, a spat stack, do you have to go for the player to realize he's not looking at the gun, even though it acts the same? What if you were placing just a tube, a slightly neon lights glowing tube? Like having something like Dark Souls. Every weapon you see in third person looks nice, because Dark Souls has these weird camera angles when you get to find this right angle and it has like this blurry thing, and I don't have played that much remastered, so not really say, but OG Dark Souls has these like weird blurs. So when you get the right distance, you can appreciate the details of the weapon. Now, if it was just a bland object like a ball, a sphere, a tube, no other characteristics, does it make the player feel they own this? Because what does separate from just being a spell, right? You play Dark Souls, you play Souls-like or fantasy games, and from having like a melee weapon, a ranged weapon, a shield, your fists, whatever, you start going like PewPew, fireball, arcane missile, zoom, zoom. Okay, that's a bit of a light, with a very basic like trigonometry. Zoom. Okay, not exactly gear like machinery. Now, in other games, you could be shown like summoning circles and ethereal, kind of like actual objects, just with a different lighting. Dark Souls does this too. When you make magical weapon, magical shield, it turns into like a blue item to emphasize that it's magical. It's magical coated. And there are popular weapons when they popular games like Persona, where they summon spirits or whatever, and they have this spiritual forms. And if you apply this to items that look like guns, look like firearms, or explosive devices, or incendiary devices, does that have the immersion of you handling the weapon? I would argue yes, but still looking kind of weird for me. And I have not talked with this with many people, because usually it goes like, oh, uh, you know, some of my friends like, oh, you also have this like other magic weapon. Okay, just shoot sorcery. Okay, so about this gun. Oh, you mean the sorcery? Yeah, yeah, yeah. It turns magic. Okay, so your weapon. So it's a weapon. Yeah, it's sorcery. Hmm. So there's a distinction. It's perception mostly. Like you can make a. Do you really wanna make, let's say, a setting where you have seemingly a period era, right? Like Second World War or 1600s or future, like Battlefield, the futuristic version, and suddenly your gun turns spectral. Not advanced camouflage, but spectral, with like small stars pew, pew, coming out of it, and when you shoot, it's just like summoning turtles. Now you could argue all this holographic and special skin, but what if it isn't? What if it's like the basic skin? Does this take you out of it? For some people, should be optional for you. It's like, when does a gun, a firearm, becomes something else? Visually, by the feel of it. If you're using like a club, or some other character is using like a club, you're seeing it. And then it has all the characteristics. Sure, you're watching a gun. If it's floating though, it looks a bit more ominous, because it can still point at something. But if you use it as a club, that you're pointing like the buttstock at something, it's not like that ominous because it's a buttstock. It's the point of the barrel that bullet comes out, that usually the dangerous one, or laser, plasma, whatever. Or if it's crossbow, the point of the arrow, bolt. So yeah. Another thing, before starting the whole series of whatever video game assets and fantasy styles, is, sure, you want to be able to have your character have a gun and shoot a gun. What are you looking at? You see the effect of shooting, you can hear it, you can see the interaction. You click, you go boom. Pretty easy to understand. When it goes boom, you can see the flash, or you can see like a. Can we have tracer at nights? An image of shooting guns at night. Do we have an image of a tracer? Okay, so that's something. So if you were to have the tracer, okay, it is a level of, that would be pretty nice. Well, hello, US Department of Defense. Thank you. Pretty sweet, pretty sweet. It even has a little like distortion. Assuming it goes so fast and it has this variation or the shakiness of the camera, right? But let's face it, most video games will have you in a very close environment, so you will interact with stuff very easily, very fast, have multiple options around you, and whenever you're shooting at an open field, so you won't get lost in what you have to do, it will point you to what you have to do. Unless like a very hardcore or simulation-like game. So nice to have even in like broad daylight setting, right? To have the tracing, to have the flash, to have the bullet impact, and of course to show you a part of the gun. If most people here are around 30 will remember old video games and old graphics. Old graphics, video games. And even the classic pencil AK from GoldenEye. Now, if you look at effectively any shooter, if it has anything on the screen for most of the time, that's gonna be the statistics, like your character, what you need to be careful, and of course, the bigger part, the guns. Fists, swords, guns, items that you're gonna use. That's right there. You know, that's the that's the main character. It's pretty identifiable. You have it here. Now you might be able to have stats, right? That's like so you can have pretty good idea what to expect. What are you doing? But the really immersive thing is the interaction. It doesn't have to have the best action as long as it interacts. Because if this messes up, if the clicking and the interaction doesn't match up in the time, oh no. It's not gonna be such as immersive as I have found out when I was changing the skins in Counter-Strike 1.6 in Condition Zero. Mostly in Condition Zero. Because, you know, I would fire and the firing animation would be all messed up because I want to change the skins with other guns. So, you know, when I moved left to right, it would look just right, but when I fire, it would look clunky, whatever, right? So it's not so much the detail, the lighting, or the accuracy of the objects, as long as it's kind of look the part. Okay, we have this example. And then of course, not only does it shoot, because you know your eyes can focus here in the bright thinking that you're mostly watching wherever you go, because all of these behind can change. And as long as there is some shapes that will slowly change, you can tell where you're going. You can tell there is like a horizontal, like horizon line, and there is like a street. There is like a huge object, and if it's 3D, even better sometimes. In 2D, they kind of remain the same, so you can tell that you're moving, that you have direction, a sense of direction, and of course, when you're triggering your guns and they interact, another great thing is you expect to do something. And it's like an incendiary, flaming weapon, it's like very short range. At which point, I have seen people, friends of mine, fumble. They're like, oh, look, it spews out fire. I'm not sure where it is. Right? Because until they get really close to a target or they do a reload animation, they might not have realized it was like a sci-fi or steampunk flamethrower or like a shotgun thingy. So, you know, like, oh, I was shooting, but, you know, the opponent or the target over there kept moving. So, oh, this gun sucks. But when it gets closer, it all works out like, ha, like it worked. But, it didn't left huge bullet holes. It's like, yeah, it's flamethrower. Oh, but then again, I don't know English, so. But then again, it's like a flamethrower in a pure flamethrower, short range flamethrower, like a small strip with like a medium fireball from a gun like this. Like, does it really feel like you're shooting something? Because you expect if it was shooting fireballs, it would still would look like a gun. Most people like, oh, I'm shooting at him. Yeah, it looks like big balls, but oh, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm shooting at him, it doesn't matter. Who cares if it doesn't look like a trace from a bullet? It's made up thing. But if it's small flames and it doesn't fly towards the enemy, most people have troubles with this because they want immediately to have an interaction. And how do you achieve that? How do you set this interaction? One is to make everything ranged. But range can have, like typically hit scan, where you just go pew 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 and you see effect immediately over there, even if there's like an object in front of you. Not much of a problem, as long as you can see that you're doing something and you can see the target for the most part. Now, if you can't see the target, that's kind of a problem. Because how do you know you hit them? Well, Call of Duty has hit marks. Other games has like a small pop-up chat that, hey, you hit something, especially in PvP, right? That's kind of common. Other games will have stains, like a splash, or like a metal grinding thingy that you're hitting the opponent's armor, or like small electrical discharges that you're breaking something. Kinda nice to have. Because you're shooting and you're hitting something. You want this interaction constantly. Again, if it's like a short range, extremely short range, taser or flame incendiary weapon, sometimes, even though it looks like a firearm, sometimes it doesn't make the people feel like they're shooting something. So you either need to have most people, the people I know do have like a problem with this. And not a problem, I'm gonna talk about it and watch Asmongold videos. Like when they play, or when they used to play, from when they used to play and when they're playing now, they only care for fun. It's a video game. You want fun. It doesn't have to be PvP, it doesn't have to be like a battle pass event. It just want fun, right? So, like, if these were gauntlets, and every time you press the button, even if you didn't press the button, now I remembered, if it did it on its own, it would I still saw people thinking they were shooting. Thus, I conclude it was immersive. In my book, that's immersive. It's like watching a show, except you can interact with it. And in a 3D environment, that helps a lot, because you can actually get in there. Now, yes, in 2D. Lately, we have 3D that turns into lookingly 2D, right? We even have shows, right? Japanese anime shows that really did a great job, like the one with a band, like the band Cries something titled, and they really did like Sevsky's job with this. And that's great when you want to have like a bit more like a platformer or 2D styles while still having a 3D environment, so you can change things and perspectives and all these options, especially when handheld devices get so much stronger, more perceived power. Another, let's see, grenade launchers. If you made flamethrowers, either like a continuous firing weapon, like a stream of flame, great. It feels like you're shooting at something. In my personal opinion, it feels like you're shooting something. If you are flaming everything around, that's kind of in between. That's kind of between. Because you have shooters with guns, and then you have popular games with fantasy, and people will see that, like Lineage 2, Lineage 2, Lineage. I'm gonna call it Lineage. We'll call it Lineage. ESL, I know. And then you have like, even though it's first person, if all this area here was lit on fire, you would initially not get it unless it always happened with your click. But then you realize you're doing something. But is it shooting? Is it a gun? That's always gonna be like a an option and something to consider. It reminds me of the Ion Painter. Ion Painter in Unreal Tournament, right? Because you could argue that the Ion Painter, it's a weapon, yes. It's... what the hell is that? Does it look like a gun? There's a handle. There's seemingly parts that other firearms have, okay. Could be incendiary, by the looks of it, if you've seen a flamethrower. But if it's a gun part, you point and you click, but there's a delay. It comes from somewhere else, a different direction than yours. Unless you're very high up in a building and looking downwards where you aimed. Or you're so close to the point of impact that you feels like you're clicking, and you might think, oh, how come you don't know? Well, haven't you seen the tutorials? No, sometimes you don't see the tutorials. Sometimes you just go into the game. And that's something to consider. Sometimes you do want to shut off your brain, just have fun, right? Like playing, I don't know, a zombie game. Get into Counter-Strike, Nixon Zombies, Studio, whatever it's called nowadays, and you mow down opponents. And they're not just bland opponents. They have variations, they have skills, they kind of transform, they blow up, they might throw grenades, they interact with those, they jump up, they do things, they have like a different interaction with different weapons. It's nice, you're just grinding them. Sometimes maybe too much variation, like from the skinniest little girl to the most massive, like freakiest dragon-like ones. Okay. Sometimes it works, sometimes like I didn't have the time to see anything. I'm like, okay, I mowed down everything in front of me, it still works. Or if they get stuck, get your time with each one of them slowly. Of course, you start seeing the gaps in between the game mechanics. But hey, up until that point, it was immersive. Unless it wasn't your thing. It was okay. If it goes click, boom, and there's a stream towards the target, then it feels like a gun in a game about guns or whatever. Maybe it's fantasy and you picked up a gun, maybe it's like totally made up scenario and different like timelines and different time period inspired. Maybe you have dinosaurs and then you have pirate era from like Hollywood standards, inspired from like a very specific scene from a movie. And then you have like a space age, again from like Star Trek or Star Wars or Blade Runner, or somebody tried to make space with a lot of neon lights and bioengineered things like in the Alien universe, or some others I can't come up with right now the names of. And you're like, okay, it looks different, like Half-Life, like the first mod. Uh, the first like game, the PvP maps had biological weapons that you fed them stuff, and they had like tentacles and mouths and like spewed acid, whatever. Yeah, low poly, low graphics, but still variation and different thinking, different items that interacted differently. Very neat, very cool. I don't know why they disappear that easily, just like spears from the Elder Scrolls games, except like online. You can't really play it now, can you? Servers are gone, I think, pretty soon. Look, interaction. Now, if those was in between, you had firearms, but they weren't exactly metallic. Maybe there's something else like stone, magic stone, and you're like a undefined era, magical era. And every time you go click, it had recoil. You were like seeing something like a hand, and you were reloading it, like a lever action or a brake action. But instead of shooting something, it was popping in an area around you. That would be confusing. Because, yes, you did what? You interacted with this. And now you have what? An area of effect. Again, just like with the flamethrower, if you're just gonna flame downwards around your area, if you ignite it every single time, and the explanation is that you're dripping liquid and you have like a fire resistant suit somehow, it doesn't affect you. Is it really shooting? Well, it's a flaming incendiary, like an explode. Even with a pack of explosives, it feels like you're shooting something, because you go like boom, whoop, whoop, right? Place the bomb here. You place the bomb here. What you did was go as close as possible, and you clicked it, and you left. If you had like a rocket in your hand that looked like you were pointing at something, almost like holding a minigun or a big bazooka underarm, or even over the shoulder, and it's like, okay, suddenly moved upwards and just got out of the screen, and now you were looking at the faraway distance, and you're like, does it feel like you're shooting something? Does it feel like a gun? I feel like this takes to the stretched area. Because it's go pew, 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 pew. If it was a rocket launcher, it would take you so long, but it's interactive, right? It's interactive. If it's a 2D platformer, you can have this interaction constantly. Because whenever I'm playing a game or see people play the game, whatever the character does, especially you can clearly see him. This is not pure clear examples, but you still have gaps. If it was just like that, with open, clearly defined ground, environment, and your character was here, and it was going like, oh, I'm gonna do things, I'm gonna point something upward, take some steps, lay down, and then something fly upwards, and then I'm done. I'm gonna get up, this is gonna go out, and I'm gonna start moving again. Okay, so you're like, what does that do? I clicked something. I pointed somewhere and I clicked. And then, okay, so I shot something and that took a while. If, however, you were pointing the single gun and clicked and that just lit up the whole area around you on fire, it would be like, did I shot anybody? Because if you moved and your opponent came in, it's like, capture, started getting on fire and died. Like, oh, they walked into there, right? You have to like set things afire. Do people call it shooting? I don't think so. Like, is this going to be a thing that will say that it's a gun? Not really. So if you have a grenade launcher, and that grenade launcher is effectively shooting so low, or if it's tracking people, right? Maybe someone is so fast and it's in a first-person shooter coming just about to exit your field of view, and your gun just like, it has like a small tracing route diagonally. Feels like you're shooting something because the moment you click, you see motion and the effects over direction, and you still remember seeing something, or at least you had in your mind that you're going to shoot something. Even though your target was moving left and right, it had left very little time for you to set him set right and centered for you to shoot. You still have this image of something being there. And the more you have played, the more you have this concept of how it should look like. So that would be shooting. But if that comes so close to you, assuming the opponent's just on your left, just around you, and that creates, let's say, flammable field, I feel like this still counts as shooting a gun in a video game, as the triggering happens and there's an effect because of the pew, kaboom, straight to the target. Now, if there was no tracing in the flamethrower example, and it was like almost like an area of effect because this is like a microwave futuristic weapon, I feel like this is magic. If you don't show something coming out of there, the thing you're holding, going downwards or to the area and then making a small area effect, I don't consider this to be shooting. You can say you're shooting, but it doesn't feel like you're shooting. Because let's say you want to do this multiple times, right? Like, just for fun and giggles. If it just paints the whole area with circles, just because you were aiming at it, but you didn't see it coming out, it would feel like a spell. It feels like you're just pointing your mouse over the screen. Nothing really special. Because let's face it, if you make magic casters, right, it's magic. You have to describe what you're doing, or you can just set it based on the expectation of the player. A magic wand, a magic staff, a scepter, magic ropes. It kind of leaves undefined because, like, okay, what's gonna do a fireball? Okay, this could mean anything to the people. So they get used to how the fireballs or the arcane missiles or the wind magic or the electrical, like, shock spells work, or like dark portals view thingy. It's undefined. And when you start mixing magic and spells and wizards with guns, imagine watching a Chaos Marine from Warhammer shooting his gun, like pressing, and but there's nothing coming out of there. Not even like a flashbang, not even like muzzle flashes. It just moves around, ejects shells, it just rotates. And somewhere over there or besides him, to another marine that's going to fight him, he gets like a small portal and he gets sliced in half. Like, god damn, doesn't it? It's a bit off. It's a bit off. It's a bit off. It wouldn't. I personally think it would look nice, all right, because of again of this concept, of this idea of you have to make the player see where the interaction goes, having an effect. Wow. Yeah, it might have an O factor. It's not necessarily going to make it more immersive. So, what I wanted to say in short was click, go, boom, boom makes nice for video games, in my humble opinion, and whatever it is, if it's a historical piece you try to recreate, if it's magic, you need to have a direction. Because if it's not a gun, it's like a sword, even swords are portrayed, are shown to be pointing at direction. Like Arthas in the Wrath of the Lich King trailer, he kind of stabs the ground, and then when he lifts his sword to the camera, the sword starts having like a blue flame, blue-grayish flame. Yeah, that's interaction. He pointed at the ground, flames came out, ice target, and then he pointed at you, and you can see there's flame there. If those flames came from somewhere else, still, it would be magic, but even swords and magic have a direction. One famous would be flying attacks. You swing your sword, this slash keeps going. Like Zoro from One Piece, just goes like this. If it was magical sword and you move your sword and slashes happen in the back of the character, yes, it's magic, but in a video game you'll be like, oh, yes, minus like 10 HP from the opponent. Okay, I guess. Like, yes, in a very far away, zoomed out third person might make sense, because you don't have necessarily first person, but in a first person, you gotta have it up in front, in my humble opinion. You gotta have to know what you're seeing. So how do you make things for something that goes pew pew and you were meant to see the projectile, or at least the effect of something going whenever it's on in front of your sight? Like the grenade launcher going upwards in a high trajectory out of your field of vision until it hits something in the horizon in front of you. Some games have a change in the field of view, in the point of view, from first person to third person. Some others stay in first person, but they follow the projectile, or at least they trace the camera to something, which is also very nice, because this means you can actually sometimes see your character in third person, second person, whatever, because you're still in control of your character. So there's interesting option. Trace something as if it was, you can explain it whatever, you don't even need to explain it. Sometimes you just follow the shot, or sometimes you can say, oh, there's a camera, I'm shooting a rocket, or the grenade, it has a camera, it doesn't matter how. Sometimes you don't even have to, like you play World of Warships, you shoot your guns You're presumably in a Second World War environment. Uh, it doesn't tell you. It's like a bunch of people with scopes from the ship, and you can have this mental image that you're knowing that how your shots are going because it's a video game. Nobody's over the shells and follows them as watching a movie. Just want more details of what's going on instead of telling you that, hey, you shot left, oh, you shot right. What does it mean? But if you're watching it, it's better. Again, you're following something that is being shot. Well, if you have casting abilities in like a futuristic video game with guns, when do you have magic and when you have like firearms? That's a distinction, right? A field of an area of effect, a circle doing damage, appearing like that, feels like magic. A shield, like an area of a bubble that has like layers and protects you, feels like magic. If it, however, comes out from like a grenade or something, it could like whoop and bursts out, you shot something. You still trace the motion. And that's kind of, it's a small touch, but it does change the outcome. Because otherwise, you could go pew, 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 and have all sort of crazy effects anywhere around you without seeing what something left your area and went where. Because then comes a wand, a magic wand that looks like a futuristic weapon or even a historical piece. You just have to wave it around, and it doesn't really matter where it's pointing, what it does, just does the effect. At which point your fun might not be watching the thing going off, but like knowing, getting feedback from what it does. Oh, you're killing so many opponents. Oh, you're farming so much credits from the drops. Oh, you're just having fun with the NPCs. You're locking them. Oh, you're doing PvP. And you're doing great. But if you're going to have guns in video games or in a show, I'm in the humble opinion it should be shooting something. Or at least make it way more visible having this living of, because you see videos of like shooting guns and you don't always get to see the muzzle flash because of how camera works, but it's nice to have it every single time, not constantly as a static image with small variation in size, but it's always nice to have the tracing, the interaction, where it goes, even in spells. If we were to apply this, let's say you have a magical stuff that you put like small orbs, all magical by the way, but you were like grasping with a magical glove and you have like a magical circles and you transform the wood, the wooden stuff, the magical wooden stuff with these orbs and it will like except it's another noise like crack crack. It would still feel like you're having a gun. And you're like, oh, can he point it at something? Yeah, it produces magic. And it has like a bursting area of effect and small twinkling lights that follows the target and wherever it touches. It's more intuitive. Even though you're saying it's magic, it does things that most guns don't do. It's always nice to have direction. Otherwise, just commands. You would just open the commands of the game, you would type what you want, and oh yeah, great. Yes, this turned into a round about shooting mechanics and perception of guns in video games. Yeah, man, because I don't know, this what I've seen. This has piqued my interest. Out of many things to follow. You know, it's like a introduction stream. Yep. Okay. So thanks for hanging around. tell me your opinion in the comments, I guess. This is all I had to say for now. That has been a very nice evening for me. This is my first stream. Damn, I have to take things off my chest for latest video game trends. But I'm not gonna do this stream, it's just depressing. Wow, thanks for being around, thanks for checking it. I hope to see you soon. I gotta go now. That's been way too long for a video. So anyways, catch you soon. Bye bye.